If I told you this egg was going to cost you $90, would you still buy it? No? Perhaps not. But what if I told you you just made an entire year's wage in the last 24 hours? Today we're going to talk about the insane cost of living and wages that the gold rush miners had to endure and enjoyed. When modern gold prospectors talk about the old timers, the people who struck out to try and strike their fortunes on the multiple mid-1800s gold rushes, we usually talk about the riches they pulled from the soil. One such tale was that of George Jackson, a young lanky prospector who, desperately needing resupply, had struck out to make it back to civilization. His camp was situated on a frozen gravel bar on Clear Creek, and going to collect some water from the local stream, he managed to scoop up several flakes of gold that were contained within the gravels. He spent the whole night feverishly panning around his campfire to extract $10 worth of gold, or $359 to the equivalent today. Knowing he couldn't do any proper mining until spring, he marked the area and took out a small claim on the gravel bar. Once the spring thaw came, George and 6 others returned to the area with gold pans, digging up $1,900 worth of gold in just 6 days. That's over $68,000 in gold using just pans in under a week. The Clear Creek goldfield that George established ended up producing $100 million of gold in today's money over 60 years. It's tales like this that inspired the multiple gold rushes that happened right across the globe, and in fact today continue to do exactly the same. But what's less talked about is the insane cost of living that occurred on the goldfields when these rushes took hold. A miner's wage in the early stages of the rush was dependent on the gold he could find on his pegged claim. Most of the initial rushes were sparked by shallow and very rich alluvial gold fields. It was possible to pan an ounce of gold in just a single pan on many of the richer claims. Depending on where you were in the world, an ounce of gold would net you somewhere between $4 and $16. Some of the richer claims were producing over $2,000 of gold in a single day. That's more than a year's wages for most skilled tradespeople back in the 1850s. Of course, there were associated fees if you wanted to be a prospector. In the Klondike, it was possible to peg a 151 meter claim for completely free, so long as that claim was worked proactively and it wasn't left abandoned for more than 3 consecutive days. And after the first 12 months, an annual fee of $100, or roughly $2,900 in today's money, was required by that miner. When the gold rush really kicked off here in Australia in 1851, there was a 10 shilling per month gold miner's license that was required to be purchased. This was an extremely steep price for most gold prospectors, and in 1854 the Eureka Stockade, a violent uprising that was protesting not only the mining license but the right to vote, forced the Crown to bring in what is called a miner's right, which cost only $32 a year. In fact, a version of that license is what we hold today, and it's been reduced even further in price. We only pay $26 for 10 years. As a miner, you needed somewhere to stay, and most prospectors across the world brought a roll of canvas with them. This would allow them to make a makeshift tent. And whilst various laws came in across the world regarding where you could and couldn't set up a squat, given the quantity of gold that was being pulled out of the ground, you could buy plots of land in central towns such as Dawson City for a quite reasonable price. A small house block in Dawson would cost you the sum of $500, or about $14,000 today. However, by late 1898, that same block of land had gone up exorbitantly. A cheap block of land was selling for around $10,000, or $280,000 in today's money. At the start of the rush, this was not really much of a problem for most gold prospectors on good ground. On average, a Californian gold miner was making around $20 of gold from his claim every single day. That's about $750 in today's money. Whilst this didn't make most miners rich, it definitely made them a lot more comfortable. However, all good things must come to an end, because just 6 years later, most gold prospectors on the Californian goldfields were only making $3 a day. That's only about $116 in today's money. This was for several reasons, including the fact that most of the easy ground had been cleaned out, all of the good ground had been claimed up by mining consortiums, and hyperinflation was driving not only the gold price down, but goods and commodities up. In fact, most gold miners weren't mining their own ground, they were working for the consortiums and getting paid a wage. Most consortiums were paying a miner around $3 a day, a great wage for the time, but not as good as it once was when the rush first started. You see, with so much gold being injected into the local economies, and weather events such as blizzards and ice storms, and a distinct lack of infrastructure in these remote settlement towns, it wasn't long before shopkeepers took advantage of all the money floating around. Places like Dawson City were frozen off from the rest of the world for several months a year, and when the spring thaw came in 1898, eggs went from a reasonable $1 each to $3 each, or just under $90 each in today's money. Apples went for as much as $38 a piece, a single slice of bread would cost you $40, and if you wanted to butter it, you'd be looking at an extra $100 for just a small jar. Basic foodstuffs were not the only thing to see drastic price increases. The humble miner's pick would set you back over $1,500 in the township of Ballarat here in Victoria. Even the humble newspaper was not immune. It cost over $38 just to listen to someone read one in the town hall, so starved were the miners for outside information. It didn't take long for just the shopkeepers to take advantage of loose laws, an understaffed and underfunded police force, and tens of thousands of ounces of gold. Women were outnumbered over 100 to 1 on most gold fields. Many women made the extraordinarily dangerous, long, and ludicrously expensive trip to places such as Dawson City to become sex workers. At the start of the Klondike Gold Rush, a one-way ticket to Dawson City could cost anywhere between $600 and $1,500, somewhere between $23,000 and $50,000 in today's money, with the tickets paid for by the madams in places such as Dawson City, with the guarantee that the women would work this off over the next 6 months. Many illegal brothels, peep shows, and burlesque houses were set up on the gold fields catering to the miners. And initially, a white European sex worker could make almost $1,000 a night by entertaining a single miner. That's more money than most miners were making off their claims. In fact, the madams from many brothels became so powerful, they not only funded, but created their own police forces and maintained the town's hospitals. At the end of the 1800s, most miners returned to their old professions. Broke, but perhaps a little bit wiser. And it seems to be a good lesson. Perhaps all that glitters isn't gold.